Hola, bienvenidos a nuestro servicio en línea aquí en Saddleback en español. Soy el pastor Will y me encanta decir, aquí en Saddleback no solo somos una iglesia, somos una familia. Así que bienvenidos a la familia de Saddleback en español. Feliz Día de los Padres. Sabes, ser padre es un gran regalo, es una gran bendición tomar el rol de ser padre. Efesios capítulo 6 dice esto: obedezcan a sus padres, esto agrada al Señor. Y sigue diciendo: honra a tu padre y a tu madre, así tendrás una vida feliz y larga aquí en la tierra. Hoy, Pastor Rick continúa con la serie de mensajes titulada Una fe que sí funciona cuando la vida no funciona. Y tal vez tú conoces a alguien que necesita escuchar este mensaje. Te animo que ahorita le mandes un texto o tal vez nos estás viendo en Facebook. Simplemente comparte este video. Sé que va a ser de gran bendición para tu familia y para tus amigos. Dios sigue obrando a través de nuestra iglesia. Miremos todo lo que Dios está haciendo aquí en Saddleback Church.
God's really been asking me during this season to take a step of faith and be bold. And when we got here this morning, I asked God, I said, God, just surprise us. And I asked him for 400 salvations.
Families that perhaps lost their job and due to the COVID-19, and families that don't know where to go for assistance, they know that they can rely on Saddleback Church. And so we are just thankful for your support.
You know, we have a lot of families that rely on Saddleback to get through. I mean, we have kids that are not in school right now. Their parents may or may not be working. These kids, always need a safety net. Saddleback is just amazing. I mean, they're a partner with us in terms of our providing of food and providing of support and really, being there for the spiritual and religious component.
It's crazy as a pastor just to see some of the shyest people that we would have never thought come out and share their faith. People that were afraid and they shied back, and when they were asked to come and serve, they would say, I'll do traffic, I'll do a pantry box, or I'll do a produce box. And now they've come, they've shared their faith, and it's one of those things where they tell us, it can't be that I'm just gonna sit at home knowing that I have a gift that I received, and I gotta tell everyone around me to accept Jesus in their heart.
God knows how hard it was for me to pray out loud, and I kind of felt like I wasn't a Christian, a real Christian, because I couldn't pray out loud. I keep tracking with my glow each salvation. Yeah, it's a person who accepted Jesus. Today, 23 and counting.
Just having us all here be together, uniting under the same banner of Christ to help give hope to people that don't have it in this season, I think it's just something really special.
It's been so good to be able to share that with somebody and bring that into their life.
We had so many people out here. I don't know how many volunteers we had, but we had we had like a mile-long prayer chain going down there of cars just lining up people that are waiting and wanting prayer.
Lives have been changed. Destinies of families have been moved. Things are different now. Our community is gonna see something different. And it all started here with a simple box of food. This is what it's like to be part of a family. This is what it is to serve our community. I love what Pastor Rick always says, the church never closed. If anything, we're more alive today than we've ever been. 448 families and their children will now have Jesus in their home tonight because of Saddleback Church. That's incredible.
Qué hermoso es ver todo lo que Dios está haciendo a través de nuestra iglesia. Y como pastor de Saddleback Church en español, estoy tan orgulloso y agradecido de ver a nuestros voluntarios, nuestros líderes, nuestros pastores como Pastor Joel, que nos están liderando durante este tiempo. Vidas están siendo transformadas y toda la gloria y honra se la damos al Señor. Ahora vamos a tomar un tiempo para adorar a Dios. Salmos capítulo 95 versículo 6 dice: adoremos al Señor, arrodillémonos delante de Él, porque Él nos creó. Él es nuestro Dios y nosotros somos su pueblo. Familia, adoremos a Dios.
Cadenas romperá y todos le adorarán. ¿Quién como el Señor Dios fuerte? Él es el león, león de Judá. Él tiene poder para liberar. Todos se postrarán ante él. Él es el Cordero, Cordero inmolado, su sangre en la cruz borró mi pecado. Todos se postrarán ante el Cordero y el león, todos se postrarán ante él. Abrir las puertas hoy al Rey de Reyes y Señor, al Dios de salvación que vino a darnos libertad. ¿Quién como el Señor Dios fuerte? Él es el león, león de Judá. Él tiene poder para liberar. Todos se postrarán ante él. Él es el Cordero, Cordero inmolado, su sangre en la cruz borró mi pecado. Todos se postrarán ante el Cordero y el león. Todos se postrarán ante él. ¿Quién como el Señor Dios fuerte? ¿Quién como el Señor Dios fuerte? ¿Quién como el Señor Dios fuerte? ¿Quién como el Señor? ¿Quién como el Señor Dios fuerte? ¿Quién como el Señor Dios fuerte? ¿Quién como el Señor Dios fuerte? ¿Quién como el Señor? Él es el león, león de Judá. Él tiene poder para liberar. Todos se postrarán ante él. Él es el Cordero, Cordero inmolado, su sangre en la cruz borró mi pecado. Todos se postrarán ante el Cordero y el león. Todos se postrarán ante él. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord our God. I cast my mind to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. I see his wounds, his hands, his feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. 流盡了血，淌乾了淚，墳墓裏躺，冷冰安葬。Natakpan malaking bato, naratayang Mesiyas ko. 찬양하세 높으신 이름 찬양하세 영원토록 끝이 없는 주 향한 노래 오 주 내 하나님 시구야 다주 알파기리 원어원 빈군이 알포포카 Lunes and muerte caído, Cristo Jesús resucitó. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, oh Lord our God. You shall return in robes of white. The blazing sun shall pierce the night.
Воскреснулся святыми я, прикован взгляд к лицу Христа. Jesus, we praise your name.
thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. You've never failed me, God. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. You've never failed me yet. La noche acabará, tu palabra se cumplirá. Mi corazón te alabará. Mi corazón te alabará. Cristo mi Salvador, cúbreme con tu amor. Mi corazón te alabará. Yo por siempre confiaré, Señor. En ti confiaré. Tu promesa sigue en pie. Tú eres fiel. Confiado andaré. En tus manos estaré. Tú siempre has sido fiel. Never fail. Tú siempre has sido fiel, Señor. I believe it. I've seen you move. You move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe. Oh, I believe, yeah. I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move. You move the mountains, and I believe, Lord. And I believe I'll see you do it again. I'll see you do it again. You made a way. You made a way where there was no way. And I believe it. I'll see you do it again. I'll see you do it again. Oh, see you, Lord. See you do it again. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. Lo harás otra vez, Señor. Never failed me yet.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rick Warren, author of The Purpose-Driven Life, pastor of Saddleback Church, and speaker on the Daily Hope broadcast. And have I told you lately that I love you? Welcome to part 14 in our series on the book of James, where we're looking at a faith that works when life doesn't. And today, as we continue in our study of the book of James, we're camping out on a verse that we looked at last week, James chapter 3, verse 18. It says this: those who are peacemakers will plant seeds of peace, and they will reap a harvest of goodness. Those who are peacemakers will plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of goodness. James 3:18. Now, in our last session, I explained the 6 seeds of peace that James tells us in the verses right before that we're to plant. And he says, if you'll plant these things in your relationships, you're going to have happy, good, strong relationships. Today, I want us to continue looking at how to be peacemakers in a world full of conflict. You know, 3 of the most important life skills that you have to learn in life are how to de-escalate a conflict, how to resolve a conflict, and how to reconcile after a conflict, a strained or a broken relationship. If you don't learn these 3 skills, you're going to spend a lot of your life miserable. You know why? Because we're all different. God made us all different. And that means we're bound to have conflict almost every day of our lives. These are important skills that you need to learn and use literally everywhere. You're going to use them at work. You're going to use them at home, at school. You got to use them at church, in your community, in your small group, literally everywhere. Now, here's the problem. Nobody taught you these skills. Nobody. You didn't learn how to diffuse a conflict or de-escalate one. You didn't learn how to resolve a conflict. You didn't learn how to reconcile a relationship. You certainly didn't learn them from your parents. In fact, they might have been a terrible model of conflict resolution because nobody taught them. See, they don't have classes on conflict in schools. You've never had a class on how to de-escalate a conflict, and yet it's one of the most important skills for you to be happy in life. You know, this week, America is in its 4th week of protest, where protesters in over 2,000 cities have been protesting over some incidents where people did the opposite of diffusing and de-escalating a conflict. In fact, it went the opposite direction. And because it got escalated instead of de-escalated, Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Rayshard Brooks all ended up dead. That's a tragedy. And I think our entire nation needs the message that I want to share with you right now. So I want to encourage you to take notes. You can download this outline and not only take notes on this, but teach it to your children too. Again, let's go back to our theme verse, James 3:18. Those who are peacemakers will plant seeds of peace, and they will reap a harvest of goodness. He's talking about peacemakers. Now, you know, Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, blessed are the peacemakers. They will be called the children of God. So the proof that you're really a child of God, the proof that you're really born again, that you're on your way to heaven, that you're in the family of God, the proof is that you are a peacemaker in the world, not a troublemaker, not a conflict maker, but a peacemaker. Now, before we look at how do you defuse a conflict from God's word, let me tell you a couple things that peacemaking is not, okay? You might write these down. First, peacemaking is not avoiding, and number 2, peacemaking is not appeasing. It's not avoiding, and it's not appeasing. Avoiding, some people think I keep the peace in my marriage by just avoiding everything. I don't rock the boat. I sweep everything under the rug. I swallow it. I grin and I bear it. I just avoid the areas that cause us conflict. That's not peacemaking. That's cowardice. That doesn't help at all. It doesn't grow your relationship in Christ. It doesn't build your marriage or any friendship or anything else. So peacemaking is not running away from the problem or avoiding the problem or heading the opposite direction of the problem. It's not avoiding. It's also not appeasing. Now, appeasing means I always give in. That whoever I have conflict with, they always get their way. Peace at any price. It's appeasement. Appeasement is not peacemaking. In fact, that's called codependency, when you're always giving in all the time. Jesus Christ never ran from a legitimate conflict. He knew how to diffuse conflict. He knew how to deal with it face on. He knew how to resolve it, and he knew how to restore a relationship. So what I want to do this weekend is teach you what you've never been taught before in school or probably anywhere else. And that is the 10 biblical steps for defusing a tense situation. And boy, does our nation and our world need this right now. All right? Get out your pencil. Here they are. The biblical steps for defusing a conflict. Number 1, lower my voice. Lower my voice. Proverbs 15 verse 1 says, a gentle response, that's lowering your voice, will calm a person's anger, but harsh words stir up intense fury. Now, you know this is true, that the louder you get, the louder the other person gets in an argument. When you start yelling or they start yelling, then you're both going to do the same thing. And the reason why the first thing you need to do in any conflict is to lower your voice. There's a couple reasons for it. In the first place, your brain doesn't operate at the same level all the time. You have lower levels, which are kind of more emotional and instinctual, and you're not even thinking about it. And then you have the higher levels where you're thinking pretty sharp and pretty smart. At your highest level is your cortex in your brain. And in your cortex, that's where you have the capacity for speech. That's where you have the capacity for strategizing, for planning, for thinking, for reasoning. When you're using your cortex, you're thinking smart. You're much more able to work on a problem and solve it creatively when you're using your cortex. But when you get fearful, or when you get afraid, or when you get angry, you drop out of your cortex and you move down into the limbic part of your brain, which is just instinctual. And at that point, you don't think straight. In fact, you think dumb. And you call names, and you get mad, and you yell, and you say things you would later regret because you're down in the limbic part of your brain. Anytime you're in a conflict and you start to get fearful or you start to get more angry, you drop out of your cortex and you're just not smart anymore. And you do dumb things. The more angry you get, the more dumb you become. You might write this down. The more I raise my voice, the more I lower my intelligence. The more I raise my voice, the more I lower my intelligence. Because when you're yelling, you're not in the cortex part of your brain. You're not in the smart thinking, rational human part. You're down in the instinctual gut part. Now, not only is that one of the reasons why you need to speak quieter, lower, softer, but you also have in your brain a thing that's called mirror neurons. You see, years ago, thousands of years ago, the Bible says, lower your voice, be quiet. But when you speak, that a gentle answer turns away wrath. We didn't know the neuroscience behind it. Today we know that in your brain you have what are called mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are the ability to feel what you see. The only reason you like to go to the movies is because God gave you mirror neurons. And when you see somebody being kissed on a screen, you feel that kiss. And when you see somebody getting angry on a screen, you get angry. And when you see somebody wanting to get revenge in a movie, it's not even a real story, but you feel the need for revenge and you feel the need for justice. And so when they're happy, you get happy. And when they're sad, tears come to your eyes. It's not even a real story when you're watching a motion picture. But it's called mirror neurons. And because we have mirror neurons, the same is true in an argument. Whatever you give out, you're going to get back because their mirror neurons are going to back it back to you. So if you get angry, they're going to get angrier. If you start yelling, they're going to start yelling. If you get sarcastic, they're going to get sarcastic. Those mirror neurons in your brain actually simply reflect what you sow, you're going to reap in any argument. Ecclesiastes 9 verse 17 says this: the quiet words of a wise person are more effective than the shouting of a leader of fools. The quiet words of a wise person are more effective than the shouting of the leader of fools. Shouting means you've already moved out of the higher level of thinking. So the starting point in de-escalating any conflict is to lower your voice. Just lower your voice. Don't get loud. Go soft if you want to get progress. Number 2, real practical here, breathe and slow down the pace of your speaking. Just take a deep breath and slow down the pace of your speaking. The more angry you get, the faster you talk. And the faster you talk, it creates anger in other people. Not just the loudness of what you say, but how fast you say it. And when you're rattling it off like you're a machine gun, you're going to feel, people are going to feel offended. They're going to feel defensive. And the Bible says this in Proverbs 29, verse 11. I love this in the New American Bible. A fool gives full vent to his anger. A fool gives full vent. In other words, he just lets it go. He just vomits on people with all of his anger and his arrogance or whatever. A fool gives full vent to his anger. But by biding his time, the wise man calms it down. How do you calm down your anger? When the situation is escalating at home or at work, or on a protest line or anywhere else. How do you bring it down? He says, by biding your time, the wise man calms it down. The first guy who said this was Thomas Jefferson. He said, when you're angry, count to 10, and if you're very angry, count to 100. He's the guy who came up with that idea on dealing with anger management. It's actually true. By biding your time, you will calm down. So you want to lower your voice, and you want to slow your speech when you're starting to get upset. Proverbs 15, verse 18. I love this in the Message and the New Century Version. People with hot tempers start fights, and they cause trouble. But a calm, cool spirit keeps the peace. How do you keep the peace? With a calm, cool spirit. Another verse that says something similar is Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 4. In the Message, it says this. If a ruler, or anybody else for that matter, loses his temper against you, don't panic. A calm disposition quiets intemperate rage. A calm disposition quiets intemperate rage. If somebody comes at you with a full force of anger, he says, don't panic. Don't let your mirror neurons respond that way, but slow down, lower your voice, take a breath, and slow your speech. And he says, that's what wise people do. Number 3, third step in de-escalating a conflict. Listen more than I talk. Listen more than I talk. Now, we keep coming back to this verse in James chapter 1, verse 19, because it has so many applications. James 1:19 says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. If you do the first 2, the third is automatic. If you're quick to listen and you're slow to speak, you will be slow to get angry. On the other hand, we do the exact opposite. We're quick to speak. We're slow to listen. And as a result, we're fast to get angry. No, the Bible says you need to listen. Okay, just slow down and listen. Proverbs 13, verse 10. I'm laughing about this because this weekend is our 45th anniversary, Kay and I, and 45 years ago this weekend we were off on our honeymoon, and on our honeymoon we started arguing, and the first Bible verse we had to learn together in our marriage, we hadn't got off our honeymoon before we memorized Proverbs 13:10. And I'll tell you, in the King James Version it says, "Only by pride cometh contention." But in the Message, here's what it says: "Arrogant know-it-alls stir up discord." Arrogant know-it-alls stir up discord. Okay? When you think you already know what your wife or your husband or somebody else is going to say, or you think you understand them and you don't, you're just going to stir up discord. That's pride. That's arrogance. And the rest of that verse says, "Arrogant know-it-alls stir up discord." In other words, they create conflict. Pride is the source of all conflict. But, he says, "Wise men and women listen to each other's counsel." Oh my goodness. On Father's Day, dads, are you listening to your wife's counsel? And vice versa? Wise men and wise women listen to each other's counsel. Why is it so hard to hear advice from the person that you love the most? I don't know. But the Bible tells us that we need to put our pride aside and we need to listen. But we need to listen for something very specific, and that's number 4. In the 4th step of diffusing conflict, listen for the hurt behind the words. Well, if you get this, you're going to really make progress in your relationships. Stop listening to the words and start listening for the emotions behind the words. What they're saying is not nearly as important as the emotion they're communicating. Are they afraid? They may not be saying, "I'm afraid," but they may be afraid. They may be depressed. They may be jealous. They may be anxious. Look for the hurt behind the words. So many times we argue with somebody in an argument over words when that's not really the real issue. The real issue is the emotion behind the words. You need to look for the hurt, hear the hurt behind the words. Sometimes I give you permission to just ignore the words and instead focus on the mood. What are they emoting? What are they saying in this? When you do that, you'll be a lot less defensive. And, if you come at me with anger, then I'm going to tend to get defensive. But if all of a sudden I realize that what you have is not anger, it's frustration, I'm a little bit more likely to cut you some slack. Or if you're fearful, I'm a little bit more likely to cut you some slack because I can understand fear and frustration better than I can understand anger. Proverbs 14, verse 10 says, "Each heart knows its own bitterness." What is that verse saying? God is saying everybody has a hidden hurt. Everybody has a hidden pain. Everybody has a hidden wound. Do you know? There's an famous old story about 2 men, and he said, "Are you my friend?" And he said, "Yes, I'm your friend." "Are you my friend for life?" "Yes, I'm your friend for life." "Then tell me, where do I hurt?" Because if you're really my friend, you're going to know where I hurt. And if you don't know where I hurt, you're just kind of a casual friend. Each heart knows its own bitterness. You need to stop paying so much attention to the words that people say and listen to their moods, listen to their emotion, listen to the pain behind the statements. All right? Now here's what you do while you're doing that. Number 5, in how to diffuse a conflict. Pray while I'm listening. Yeah. While you're pausing and you're being quiet and you're just listening and you're listening for the hurt, you pray while you are listening. I ran across a verse the other day I loved in Judges chapter 6, verse 24. It says this: "Gideon built an altar for worshiping the Lord, and he called it, 'The Lord Calms Our Fears.'" What a great name for an altar. The Lord calms our fears. Okay? Now, when you're in a conflict with a parent, with a child, with a spouse, in a protest, with an officer, with a teacher, with a boss, with a store clerk, anytime you get in a conflict, okay, then you need to stop and pray, and while you're praying, say, the Lord calms me. The Lord calms my fears. And when the Lord calms your fears, then you're going to be able to do those other things like lower your voice, take a pause, slower your pace, start to listen. When you pray, what are you praying for? You're saying, God, calm me down. Calm me down. You know, he is the God who calms our fears. Psalm 65 verse 7 says this, God stills the raging ocean. He quiets the noise of roaring waves. And he calms the uproar of the peoples. Look at that phrase. He calms the uproar of the peoples. That's an interesting phrase. I looked it up. In the Living Bible, it's translated, he quiets all the world's clamor. Don't you need that done in your life sometimes? To have all the world's clamor just quieted in your life? New Living translates it, he calms the shouting of the nations. The shouting of the nations. The noise pollution we have in our modern world. The Message paraphrase translates it, he calms the mobs in noisy riot. That's the kind of verse we need today in all the things we're seeing and facing. So you pray and you say, God, calm me down. Calm my fears, calm my anxieties, calm my worries, calm my frustrations, calm me down. He is the King of kings and Lord of lords who can calm the seas. And if he can calm a stormy sea, he can calm the storm in your heart. All right, number 6. Sixth step on lowering the conflict and defusing a tense situation. Seek to understand before seeking to be understood. Seek to understand before seeking to be understood. Try to figure out what they're thinking and they're saying before you start trying to convince them about what you want to say. Don't worry about them understanding you until you fully understand them. That's the loving way. That's the Christ-like way. That's the Christian way. Proverbs 18, verse 13, ICB says, a person who answers without listening first is foolish and disgraceful. A person who answers without listening first is foolish and disgraceful. So often we are so busy, disgraceful, we're so busy trying to get other people to see what we want them to see it our way, that we don't even stop. We don't even stop to even listen to what they say. Listen, make sure you understand them first. And you might even say, you go first. And then when they share what they've shared, and then you say, now let me understand it. Did I get this right? And you can say back to them what you think they said. And if you didn't say it right, let them correct it. Right along with that is number 7. And number 7 is try to see their perspective. Okay? Listen to them. Seek to understand before seeking to be understood. But then while you're doing that, try to see their perspective. Philippians chapter 2, verse 4 and 5 says this, each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. You should look not only to your own interest, but to the interests of others. Try to understand their perspective. Right now, we've got people on different sides of different arguments, and all they can see is their side. And this is happening all over America and all around the world. All they can see is their side. They can't see the fears of other people. They can't see the hurts of other people. They can't see the injustice of other people. They can't see the criticism of other people. They can't see the pain of others. All they can see is themselves. He said, don't just look at your own interest, but be interested in the interest of others. And then he says it like this: your attitude should be the same as that of Jesus Christ. Now, I'll tell you, friends, that's not easy. It certainly isn't natural. I am by nature a self-centered person, and so are you. I am by nature more interested in me than I am interested in anybody else. Only Jesus can change my want to. Only Jesus can change my perspective. Only Jesus can make me as interested in what you have been through, as interested in your background as I am in my own, in protecting my kind of people and my background and my religion and all these other things, my family. Only God can make that change in you. And that's why the 8th step, number 8, is ask God. Ask God to give me a clear picture of myself. That's one of the scariest things to do. God, I want you to give me a clear perspective, a clear photograph, a clear portrait of me. One of the verses I memorized in college, and I've used it literally tens of thousands of times in my life as a prayer, is Psalm 139, 23 and 24. And it goes like this: search me, O God, and examine my heart. Test me and know my nervous thoughts. You know, when you get in a conflict, you get nervous. Know my nervous thoughts. Point out in me, not in somebody else, not in my wife, my kids, my staff, my friends, my neighbors. Point out in me anything in me that is wrong. And then lead me on the path that is always right. Psalm 139, 23, 24. Memorize that verse. It's a good verse to have to you to pray to God when you're in the middle of a conflict. All right? And if you genuinely pray that, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts. See if there be any wicked way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. You know what? God will show you. He's not going to play games with you. And he'll show you. And how many times has God said, Rick, here's the problem. You're the problem in this conflict. You're the problem. Or even if I'm just part of the problem, here's your part of the problem. And when you do that, you come to step number 9. Step number 9 is admit any part of the conflict that I caused. Okay? I'm responsible for my part. You're responsible for your part. Whether you own up to your part or not is none of my business. That's your business between you and God. But my business is to admit any part of the conflict that I caused because of my bias, because of my background, because of my prejudice, because of my insensitivity, because of my immaturity, because of my busyness and I didn't pay attention, or 1,000 other reasons that could have caused the conflict. I need to admit any part of the conflict that I caused. Jesus loved to use hyperbole or exaggeration to make a point. In the Sermon on the Mount, when he's talking about admitting the part of the conflict that you're the part you caused, he says in Matthew 7:3 and verse 5, he says, why do you notice the little piece of dust in your friend's eye, but you don't notice the big piece of wood in your own eye? He says, first take the wood, the wood out of your own eye, the big wood out of your own eye, then you'll see clearly to take the dust out of your friend's eye. He says, before you start working on that splinter in your spouse or in your neighbor or in somebody you work with, before you get that splinter out of their eye, why don't you get the telephone pole out of your eye? Okay, he said that's jamming up everything. You can't see wisely. That's the 9th step. And finally, number 10, this is really important. Choose my words carefully. Choose my words carefully. If you're going to de-escalate, words have the power to set a forest on fire. have the power to destroy a life. We're going to actually come back to this. I don't have to go into it because there's a major section in the book of James on the power of the tongue, and we're going to cover this in detail. But when I say choose your words carefully, I'm thinking about Proverbs 12:18. It says this: reckless words pierce like a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. The tongue of the wise brings healing. That's what you need to pray for. God, give me the tongue of the wise. I want my tongue to be a healing source, not reckless words that tear people up. A lot of cold cuts. And, just don't, God, put a muzzle on my mouth. Ephesians 4:29 says this: do not use harmful words, but only use helpful words, the kind that build up and provide what is needed. Now, I've gone through those 10 steps pretty quickly, but I want you to take this outline and I want you to review it. I want you to study it. If you meet with your small group this week, talk about this in your small group. I've given you more than enough information on how to be a peacemaker in these 10 steps. Jesus once said, now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. You're not going to be blessed for hearing this message. You're going to be blessed if you actually do it. If you take these 10 steps and use them in areas where you've got conflict in your life. Why do we want to do this? Because as Jesus said in Matthew 5:9, blessed are the peacemakers. They will be called the children of God. Are you a child of God? Are you a peacemaker? Every week we at the end of the service, we recommit our lives to Jesus Christ. And I don't know about you, but I feel like I need to recommit my life to Jesus Christ after just reviewing these 10 things, because there's a lot I need to work on. And my guess is that's probably true of you too. But maybe you've never even met Jesus Christ. And if not, it would be my privilege to introduce you to him right now. You can open up your life to him. I want us to bow our heads, and I'm going to pray a prayer, and you can just kind of say it along with me. And let me introduce you to the God who saved you, created you, loves you, has a plan and purpose for your life, and will give you the power to do these 10 things that we just talked about so that you can have more peace and less conflict in your life. Let's bow our heads. Father, I want to thank you for your word. It's so practical, so relevant, so needed. And Lord, we need peacemakers of all times. We need them right now. We need them in our schools. We need them in our cities. We need them in our churches. We need them in our communities. We need peacemakers in our families. We need peacemakers at work, around the world. You've told us from your word how to reduce conflict, how to defuse it, and then even how to resolve and restore relationships. And I pray that this week you'll raise up a group of peacemakers, and that you'll tell us who we need to go to make peace with, that we've been on the outs with, that we've had a conflict with. And Lord, where there's so much conflict in the world, we pray that these truths will be shared, and that there could be peace where there is violence, where there is destruction, where there is conflict. If you've never invited Jesus into your life, say, Jesus Christ, come into my life. I don't understand it all, but I want to know you. I want you to be the Prince of Peace in my life. Fill my life with your love. Take out hatred. Take out bitterness. Take out pain and hurt. And fill it with peace and purpose. I want to get to know you, and I want to follow you and trust you. And I pray this humbly in your name. Amen. If you prayed that prayer just now, congratulations. Thousands of people have been coming to Christ. Literally about 6,000 plus people have come to Christ, even though we're in COVID-19 shutdown of our worship services on the weekend, just do these online services. And if you prayed that prayer right now for the first time, I'd like to send you some material that'll help you. Write to me. Text New Start, one word, New Start, to 99,000, or email newstart@saddleback.com. And we'll keep in touch with you. I want to help you grow. The other thing we do at the end of each service is we express our gratitude to God by giving back to Him. And I want to thank you again, everybody, Saddleback people, for your faithfulness of giving online at saddleback.com/give. Because your generosity has continued in all these weeks that we haven't been able to meet, you know what? We're feeding literally tens of thousands. I think it was 40,000 families this last month. Tens of thousands of out-of-work families during COVID-19. You are making a difference with your gifts. God bless you. I love you so much, and we'll see you next weekend.
Awake before the sun, with his Bible opened up, seeking truth with every single page he turned. Anyone could see my daddy lived what he believed, with a gentle heart and passion for Jesus' blood. I know we had our times we disagreed, but the longer I live, it's clear to me I wanna be that man who loves the Lord with all his heart, just like the word commands, who takes today. Not what you give, it's more about what you can get. But I wanna live a life that's marked by sacrifice, like the Savior who died to show us all the way. So I'll take up my cross and trace his steps. Surrendering is how I serve him best. I wanna be that man who loves the Lord with all his heart, just like the word commands, who takes a stand.
Gracias por estar con nosotros el día de hoy. Es un gozo poder conectarnos a través de las redes sociales y todavía adorar a Dios juntos en familia. Si tú hoy tomaste la decisión de seguir a Jesús por primera vez, déjanos saber. Queremos celebrar contigo. Simplemente manda un texto con la palabra New Start al número 99000 o manda un correo electrónico newstart@saddleback.com. Y si quieres ser parte de un grupo pequeño, también manda un texto con la palabra Small Group al número 99000 o manda un correo electrónico smallgroup@saddleback.com. Y como iglesia seguimos impactando nuestra comunidad. Tenemos bancos de comida a través del condado de Orange County. Y si tú quieres ayudar y ser parte de esto y dar de una manera generosa, simplemente ve a saddleback.com/give y ahí puedes dar tus diezmos y ofrendas. Y si quieres ayudar en los bancos de comida de Saddleback en español, manda un texto con la palabra ayudar al número 97000. Que Dios te bendiga y nos vemos la próxima semana.